I've been staring at this blank page for hours. I don't know why I feel compelled to write it all down. It's not like anyone will believe me. Hell, I wouldn't believe me. Trauma-induced delusions. Survivor's guilt. That's what they'll call it. Whatever cute little label they slap on this madness. It doesn't matter. I know what I saw. And I know it wasn't just in my head. I worked aboard the Coldwater Marlin for 5 seasons. 5 miserable winters hauling nets in the North Atlantic. A place so cold that it chews through layers of gear like it's nothing. You don't work on a boat like the Marlin because you want to. You work there because you've got nowhere else to go. And we were a rough lot. Guys with bad habits, bad luck, or both. Drunks, debtors, and drifters. Hal Foster, the captain, once said that the Marlin didn't run on diesel. It ran on desperation. And he wasn't wrong. We've even earned the reputation as the foster kids. Ask around and they'll tell you why. They'd say, ain't no other daddy wants them. And they weren't wrong. But none of us cared about that at all much. We had a job and the captain treated us all right. And that being said, the ship itself was an old beast, rusted at the seams and groaning like an arthritic old man with every swell. And inside it was worse. The walls were streaked with salt and grease, and the air smelled like rotting fish and diesel fumes. And everything felt damp, like the ocean had already started claiming her. And looking back, maybe it did. We pushed farther north than usual on that trip, chasing rumors of a dense shoal that would make the cold and misery worth it. Hal was restless this go-around. He spent his time chain-smoking in his cabin and muttering over the charts. Something about this run felt off. But we ignored it. And you should never ignore it. The nights heading up there were the most. And out in the open sea, the darkness comes alive. The sea whispers and it howls, and the cold seems to rub up against you, searching for cracks to slip through. And sometimes, if you stare out into the dark water for too long, you start seeing shapes, things that move too fast to be fish. I always told myself that it was just exhaustion. And you end up telling yourself a lot of things out there. But all that was before we found her. It was just another haul at first. The winches screamed as the nets came up, the load heavier than expected. The guys were already cracking jokes about a big payday. And then Carlos froze. "What the hell is that?" I didn't see it at first, just a writhing mass of fish scales and seaweed. But then something shifted, and I saw her. Pale color, too smooth and no shimmer. And human skin. She was small, no older than 8. Her body tangled in the net. Her lips were sewn shut with rusted fish wire and iron fishing hooks. The flesh was swollen and raw. It wasn't the work of a surgeon. It was crude and violent and old. And yet, she was alive. Her chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Her hair clung to her face, matted with seaweed. But her eyes were the worst. Wide open and staring, but seeing nothing. The same look as the mountain of fish pressed against her. "Pull her out!" Hal barked over the intercom, but his voice cracked. A sound that I never heard from him before. And Carlos and Jake hesitated and then reached into the net, their hands slick with fish slime. They laid her softly on the deck like she might shatter, but she didn't move. "What do we do?" Jake's voice shook. And he looked at Hal, but Hal was just standing in the wheelhouse, staring through the glass. Carlos didn't wait for an answer. "We can't leave her like this," he said, pulling out his knife. I wanted to stop him. I wanted to shout at him to stop and think that whatever was going on here wasn't possible, but instead I just stood there and watched as he began cutting the wire. And the girl didn't flinch, didn't even make a sound. And when the last piece came free, her lips parted, and blood trickled down her chin. And then she opened her mouth. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a word. It was a drone, low and humming. a noise that seemed to crawl into your ears and settle inside of your skull. It wasn't loud, but it filled the air, vibrating in your bones and thrumming in your chest. And Carlos stumbled back, clutching his ears. "What the?" he started to say. But he didn't finish. He turned and he walked straight to the edge of the deck. I didn't understand what was happening. None of us did. Not until Carlos climbed over the railing and jumped. God help me. I didn't try to save him. None of us did. The splash stole the silence. And the girl sat up, her lips moving, the note growing louder. She crossed her legs and tilted her head like she was singing a lullaby for her classroom. And I can still hear it sometimes. The song. I mean, it wasn't just a note. It was something profound. Something that scratched its way into your brain and dug its claws in. The memories are coming back like a flood now, overwhelming me and choking me with the details and the visions. I can't write this fast enough. Fuck! I wish we'd just tossed her back. I'm sorry. This is hard to write. I'll just keep going. So Carlos, he was the first to go. But he wasn't the last. After he jumped, we just stood there, dumbstruck, staring at the dark waters where he disappeared. It was Will who broke the silence, running to the edge, shouting, "Carlos!" His voice was raw. He bolted to the railing, leaning so far that I thought that he'd fall in. "Carlos, get back to the surface! We'll toss you a line!" He scouted over the railing, scanning the waves, but there was nothing. No sign of him. No thrashing, nothing but the endless churn of the sea. The girl didn't move. She just sat there on the deck, dripping wet, her head tilted slightly to one side, like she was listening to something in her ear. And her lips were moving, but that song. God, that song. It wasn't just in the air, it was in us. Oscillating our teeth, buzzing behind our eyes. "Shut her up!" Hal's voice cracked over the intercom. He was still in the wheelhouse, watching everything but not coming down. "Get her to stop!" Jake was the one who went for her. Big, gruff Jake, who never flinched at anything. He stomped right over to the girl. "All right, that's enough!" he bellowed. He grabbed her by the shoulder, shaking her like she was a misbehaving child. "Hey! Shut it! Stop!" And she didn't even look at him. Her eyes were blank, unfocused, like she wasn't really there. The sound kept coming, growing louder, sharper, like it was burrowing into our skulls. Jake's grip loosened, and he stumbled back, clutching his head. "Make it stop!" he muttered, his voice cracking. "Make it stop! Make it stop!" And then he turned, slamming his head into the steel wall of the cabin. Once, twice, 3 times. The wet, sickening crunch of bone and flesh made me want to gag, but I couldn't look away. Blood smeared the walls in streaks, but Jake didn't stop until he collapsed to the deck. His face unrecognizable. His head concaved. And that's when the real panic set in for us. We bolted for the door to the crew quarters, screaming something incoherent. Danny, the youngest of us, just stood there, shaking, tears streaming down his face. "What's happening?" he kept whispering, like a prayer, like someone was going to answer him. The hum pulsed, vibrating through the deck beneath my feet. I felt drawn to the edge, my legs carrying me closer, unbidden, shaking like rubber. I don't know how I stayed upright. Maybe it was shock, or maybe part of me was already detached, already giving up. I don't know. All I know is that sound was getting louder, more insistent, more melodic. I looked over the railing, and that's when I saw them. And at first, I thought that it was debris, bits of nets and waste bobbing. bits of net and waste bobbing in the waves. But then I saw their faces. Children's heads, pale, bloated, their eyes wide and glassy. Dozens of them floating just beneath the surface, their mouths moving in time with the girl's song, opening and closing, slowly layering their voices in perfect synchronization. A whole choir. My legs finally gave out and I collapsed to the deck, clawing at the steel beneath me to keep from sliding forward, to keep me from falling into the water with them. "Don't listen to the kids! Don't listen to the kids!" I screamed, though my voice barely sounded like mine. Will came running back, holding his head like he was trying to keep it from splitting open. "They're in my head! I can hear them! I can hear them!" He sobbed, his voice high and broken. "I can hear them! I can hear!" And the girl finally stood up. Her movements were jerky, unnatural, almost thrashing. Her lips parted wider and the sound shifted, becoming something more rhythmic, more euphoric. It hurt to hear it, but was beautiful. Danny went next. He just walked past me, silent, tears still streaming down his face. He slipped over Will's blood, leaving a long smear of red footprint. But he straightened himself up and he continued. He just kept walking until he climbed right over the railing and stepped off. No hesitation, no struggle. Just gone. And the ocean he fell into wasn't quiet anymore. It erupted. The following waves sounded like a spasm of exploding glass, like 1,000 fish breaking the surface all at once. Danny didn't make a sound, but the ocean was roaring. I don't remember deciding to move, but I found myself running into the cabin. I knew that I needed to find something to cover my ears. The corridors of the ship felt tighter than usual, closing in on me as the chorus echoed off the steel walls. I grabbed anything that I could find, rags, duct tape, anything to stuff in my ears. I kept winding the tape over my head until my ears bled, and then I stepped back out onto the deck to see if there was anyone that I could help. And I wish I didn't. Off near the bow of the ship, I saw two deckhands engaging with each other. Matt and Reynolds. Matt was standing over Ray with a wrench in his hand, and he swung down. The crack was a sickeningly wet thud, almost hollow. I watched as Matt raised the wrench again. Another twist of his wrist brought the metal tool down again and again and again until the wrench was hitting more deck than bone. And I could hear him, but it looked like Matt was screaming. I turned and I darted back towards the stern. I found Stanley and Greg huddling together near the entrance to the wheelhouse. They had stuffed their ears too, and we shared a look that didn't need words. I pointed to the door, asking them to open it. They shook their heads. Stanley motioned towards the observation window above us. It was painted red. Flickers and sparks and flames illuminated what should have been the control system. I looked back at the men. Greg made a pistol gesture with his hand, pointing it at his temple and then mimicking firing a shot. Captain Foster was gone. I slumped next to both of them. The song was piercing right through our ear protection. We knew that we'd crack soon. We were just picking straws to see who would end up being first. And as it turns out, it had been Stanley. He ripped the tape off of his ears, screaming that he couldn't take it anymore, and he ran to the edge. Greg tried to stop him, but he couldn't run as fast. And I didn't even try. I couldn't. I watched Greg jump in after him. Instead of joining them, I ended up walking across the deck towards the cold storage containers. There were 20 men above the Marlin when we started our trip. By now, a good handful had jumped. But the ones still aboard, the ones that I could see, were little more than rapidly freezing masses of meat plastered against cold steel. Matt was also missing from the last place that I saw him. And Ray was too. Though chunks of Ray were still stuck to the railing, thrown overboard like a feed bucket. As I walked past the open door to the lower levels, I could vaguely hear the girl's melody echoing through my ear protection. I wondered if Matt went down there with her, or if there were half a dozen other Matts brutalizing each other in those cramped corridors. I didn't want to envision what was going on down there, but I did. And I ended up barricading myself in one of the shipping containers. I don't know how long I stayed there. Days, weeks. Time has lost all meaning. All I could hear was the faint hum of her song, Always There, pleading for me to step out. And then, all at once, it stopped. And when they finally found me, I didn't recognize them at first. I was slumped in the corner of the shipping container, curled into myself like a frightened animal. The banging on the steel door was distant and muffled. And for a moment, I thought that it was her, that she had come back, that the song would start again and drag me down like it had the others, but it wasn't her. When the door cracked open, I blinked against the sudden light. Voices filtered in. Real voices, not the broken voices of dead deckhands that I had grown accustomed to. They were always accusing me, always asking me why I didn't jump ship with them, asking why the life of one drag was worth more than the life of the next drag. And the hardest one, asking me why she let me go. A man in a bright orange winter rain suit knelt in front of me, his gloved hand on my shoulder. "You're safe now," he said, his tone gentle. But I saw the way that he looked at me, the way that his eyes flickered over my fluid-stained clothes, my emaciated figure, and my sunken face. He wasn't sure what he had found. They had pulled me out of the container and out onto their vessel, the Arctic dawn. The air was frigid and the sky overcast, the sea a vast gray expanse stretching towards the horizon. And I watched as the Coldwater Marlin was drifting silently behind us, its once busy deck now lifeless and slick with frozen blood. And I didn't say much at first. I couldn't. My throat was raw, my mind a fractured mess. They gave me blankets, water, and something hot to drink. I remember the captain, a middle-aged man with a beaten-down face and kind eyes. He had asked me questions, like what happened, where was my crew, and how long I had been out there. I couldn't answer. How do you explain something like this? How do you tell someone that the ocean swallowed 20 men because of a little girl with sewn-shut lips? And eventually, they stopped asking. Maybe they thought that I was in shock. Maybe they just didn't want to know. And as the hours passed, I started to piece together fragments of what they had told me. The Marlin had been spotted drifting aimlessly, its radio silent and its engines dead. The crew of the Arctic Dawn boarded her, expecting to find mechanical troubles or a stranded crew. And instead they found nothing. Just blood on the deck, some personal belongings scattered in the cabins, and me, locked in that container. No bodies, no signs of a struggle beyond the blood. Eventually, I tried to tell them about her. The girl, the song, and the heads in the water. But the words sounded ridiculous even to me. The captain listened quietly, his expression unreadable, but I could see the doubt creeping into his eyes. And that night, after I said my piece, I sat alone in the galley. I overheard the other crewmates talking. They didn't know that I could hear him. "Maybe he snapped," one of them had said. "Killed the others and lost it." "Yeah, but that doesn't explain the blood," another replied. "There's just too much of it for just to be one man. No way one man caused this type of mess." "Could have been pirates," someone else suggested, but the words hung in the air. Hollow. Pirates don't leave a ship untouched. And if someone goes missing, there'd be a ransom already in the works. When the captain walked in, the conversation stopped. He looked at me and nodded, but his expression said everything. And I tried to sleep that night, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. Carlos stepping off the deck, and Jake's skull caved in against the wall. Danny's vacant stare as he walked into the sea. And her. Always her. The blank expression, those dark, unblinking eyes. And in the early hours of the morning, I heard it again, faint and almost imperceptible, like a hum carrying in the wind. I bolted upright, my heart hammering in my chest. I ran to the deck, desperate to convince myself that it wasn't real. The ocean was still, eerily calm under the gray light of dawn. But I saw something. A ripple, a flicker of movement just beneath the surface. And then they appeared. The heads. Not dozens this time, but hundreds. Bobbing silently in the water, their mouths opening and closing in perfect rhythm. I backed away, trembling, but I couldn't look away. Their eyes locked onto mine, and I felt it again. That pull, that irresistible urge to join them. I screamed for the others, but by the time they came, the water was empty. Just waves and wind and the endless gray horizon. They think that I'm crazy. And maybe I am. But I know what I saw. And I know it's not over. Entry 1. If someone finds this, I hope this account sheds some light on what happened to me. As of now, things look grim and I'm trying to cling to some form of hope. And I'm mostly doing it for Mel, my girlfriend. If I crack, then she'll crack. So I'm putting on a brave face and writing down my fears here for you, whoever you are. 3 days ago, I rented a boat and took her out to sea. I wanted to do something romantic. Watch the sunset over the water or something. We've been together for a couple of years, and the idea of a ring grows more and more appealing by the day. The captain of the small 36-foot vessel was named Henry. Is named Henry. Last I checked, he's still alive. The weather was bad when we left, but it was the last day of our vacation, and I wanted to make it special for Mel. We should have turned back long before night took us, but I kept feeding Henry money. And I saw the storm clouds. He knew the risks. But I kept flashing hundreds and paid him to ignore the coming hell, putting my faith in his abilities to navigate us safely back home. And that was a mistake. Also, I'm pretty sure that he was drunk before we even set sail. If you can put a face to the term sea dog, then you know all you need to know about our captain. The storm came just as predicted. Caught us way out at sea and absolutely fucked us up. It is one of the most terrifying things I've ever lived through. The waves, the rain, the thunder. I'm honestly surprised that we're all still alive. Well, Henry isn't doing too well. He's below deck in the small cabin, lying across one of the two cots. The sail snapped during the gale and cracked him hard across the head. I managed to stop the blood flow, but he's touch and go. Which leaves Mel and me absolutely screwed. Even if I knew how to operate a boat, I couldn't because we have no sail. The small engine was lost in the storm, snapped free when the mast came crashing down. I tried the radio, but I can't seem to raise anyone. I don't even know if I'm doing it right. I used up all the flares as well. That was 3 days ago when shit hit the fan. There's some food left, a meager supply stored in the cabin below. But it won't last long. I can't believe any of this. 3 days we've been adrift and at the mercy of the tide. We haven't seen anyone. Henry's strength is failing and sleeps most of the time. Mel stopped crying yesterday and has gone mostly silent. Which leaves you and me. I'm scared. And I have no idea if I'll live through this. Entry 2. Another day has passed. The sun was hot today, so we stayed mostly below deck. Last thing we need is a blistering sunburn to add to our misery. Henry didn't move much today. He managed to ask me about the radio and tried to give me instruction on how to use it. But I couldn't understand most of what he was saying. I think that he's getting worse. We need to get him to a hospital. Though I saw something on the horizon at some point earlier, but I think that it was was just my imagination. It was just a sliver of darkness. A shadow. Probably a mirage. I can't take the silence. Mel just isn't engaging anymore. It's like she's given up. I don't think that I can handle that. Don't leave me alone with my thoughts. They're dark enough as it is. Entry 3. Same day. I'm sitting on the deck beneath the full moon. The waves are alive with its light. It'd be beautiful if it wasn't so haunting. Mel's asleep down below deck. I tried the radio again, like I have been, but wasn't able to pick up anything. It's just after midnight and I'm tired. But I don't want to sleep. I don't want to go down into the cabin and listen to Mel toss and turn as nightmares plague her. She's so scared, and so am I. About an hour ago, I thought that I heard something. Probably nothing. I don't want to keep writing, so I'll tell you about it. It sounded like clacking. Like something smacking two pieces of firewood together. And twice it happened, but it wasn't so faint. Twice it happened, but it was so faint, I'm not even sure if it was real. Probably not. I need to sleep at some point, but not yet. Maybe we'll be rescued tomorrow. As if. Entry 4. We saw something today. It was around midday and Mel was on deck with me. And she saw it first. It was the strangest thing. It was a canoe. A huge weathered canoe. It had to be at least 20 feet long. And it looked old, wooden, and was completely empty. The ends of its curvature rose up into sharp tips, almost needle thin. I've never seen anything like it. I took it as a good sign. Maybe there's an island nearby or something. It lifted Mel's spirits, thankfully. She started talking again. Got excited. And despite my lingering hopes, something about the canoe made me feel uneasy. It just drifted about for 50 yards from our boat and then out of sight. I wish it had come closer, because I could have sworn that there was something written on the side. Entry 5. Managed to get some food in Henry today. He seemed a little better after that. Asked me what day it was, how long we had been out there. Instructed me how to send an SOS on the radio, which I did. Haven't heard anything back. Now keep trying. I told him about the canoe. I didn't expect the reaction that he gave me. His face went white and he grabbed me by the shirt and pulled me close. He whispered something urgently in my ear with all the strength that he could muster. You stay away from them. Entry 6. Night again. Mel's asleep at my shoulder. I'm on deck, just watching the water. I'm lonely. I'm scared. And I can't help but think that we're never going to be rescued. Hold on. I saw something just now. 2 canoes just drifted past our boat. They were identical. They looked like the ones that I saw yesterday. What on earth are they? Where did they come from? They were closer this time, about 20 yards out, and this time I was able to see them clearly beneath the light of the full moon. There was something scrawled along the sides in big dark letters. Our hands are tied to the ocean floor. What the fuck does that mean? They drifted into one another and collided briefly. It made the same noise that I heard the other day. Entry 6. Horrible day today. Henry stopped breathing for a couple seconds, but Mel was able to revive him. He's asleep now, but she's a mess. I spent most of the day trying to comfort her. It seemed kind of pointless. I can't lie about the danger that we're in. I'm waiting for her to go to sleep so I can go back up on deck again and watch the stars. It's the only peace that I can seem to find lately. Night. Just me and the night sky. The stars are brilliant right now. I feel like crying. There's not much food left. We're really pushing it. We might have another 3 days before we're out, and that's if we're careful. Something just happened. I almost dropped my notebook in the water. It scared me so bad. It was that clacking sound again, like those canoes bumping into one another, but it was loud, like there were hundreds of them. I can't stop thinking about what was written along the sides of those things. It's late now. I ended up falling asleep on deck, but I'm up again. Still night, and I can't believe what I'm staring at right now. There are hundreds of canoes out there, beneath the moon. They're close to our boat, clustered together in a tight circle. They're just floating there, bumping into one another and making that terrible sound. I feel it pressing into my skull. Each one has the same thing written across it. Our hands are tied to the ocean floor. Entry 7. Henry died today. Entry 8. Didn't write anything yesterday. We ran out of food, waiting for the hunger to catch up. I can already feel it, and yet I know it's only the start of our torment. Didn't see any of the canoes last night. Saw something else. Lights. Lights in the water. There were 2, and then they were very far away. Green, like spotlights beneath the depths. I watched them for a long time while Mel cried herself to sleep. And I cried a little too. I don't think that we're getting rescued. There's something wrong with this place. Entry 9. Trying to ignore the hunger. Been watching the canoes instead. They're back. Dozens of them. Mel is watching too. It's cloudy today, so we're sitting on the deck. She keeps muttering to herself over and over again. I didn't catch it at first. Did eventually. She keeps saying, "My hands are tied to the ocean floor." Entry 10. Mel's gone. I woke up in the middle of the night because I heard splashing. When I saw that she wasn't next to me, I panicked. It seemed my fears were in vain. She's fucking gone. She left me a note. I don't even know what it means. It's nonsense. Biblical shit. Shit about hell. I cried so hard. Harder than I ever have before. The lights are back. Closer. Whatever the source is, it's huge. The volume of the water that's ignited by those 2 beams is incredible. Something about it scares the shit out of me. Probably because the canoes are back. They seem to be swarming the lights. Drawn to them. Something terrible is down there. Entry 11. I think I might kill myself today. I'm so hungry. Entry 12. Watching the lights in the darkness again. They're blinking. Don't know if that's good or bad. I can't count how many of those fucking canoes there are. Clacking together. Always fucking clacking. It's been a couple hours. Got lost in my thoughts. Mesmerized by the lights. Something's changed. It's the canoes. I can see something in them. Things. Shadows. Masses of darkness standing beneath the moonlight. They have horns coming out of their heads. Huge, long horns that extend high into the sky. I think they're watching me. I think I'm losing my mind. Entry 11. I'm going to swim out to the canoes tonight. They'll be back. Seem to only appear at night now. The hunger has consumed me, and the thirst. Christ, Drank some ocean water earlier and then threw up an hour later. I'm not going to last much longer. If I'm going to die, then I want to know what the fuck is going on out there. Entry 11. This is it. Lights are back. The canoes are here. They're all filled with those terrible horned shadows. I think they're waiting for me. I think Mel saw them. Because the longer that I watch them, the more that I want to go out to them. I understand the madness of that. But I don't care. I'm going to go now. The lights are blinking so fast. Goodbye. It was discovered 25 miles off of the coast of Maine by a lobster fisherman. The tip of a rusted rung ladder, painted and crusted with barnacles, jutting up through the ocean's glassy skin. You haven't heard about it on the news. You wouldn't have. The Navy buttoned it down faster than you can say Semper Fortis. Sonar scans showed the ladder descending into a vertical line for 8 miles. That's 6 miles past the ocean floor, disappearing into a newly discovered trench that made Mariana look like the shallow end of a pool. Okay, I'm being facetious, but it goes without saying that the higher-ups were concerned. Who the fuck had built a ladder in the middle of the ocean? Where'd this trench come from? Aliens? Russia? That's where I came in. I was a medic officer in the Navy's oceanography program working on experimental... Never mind. Not that it doesn't matter. It does. But if I talk about what I did, who I am, and why I'm here, I'd no doubt wake up on a trapdoor with a noose around my neck and treason charges being read to me by a guy in a starched uniform. I figured there's a damned good chance that might happen anyway. Still, I'm compelled to document this because people deserve to know what I saw. The things that haunt the back of my eyelids when I close them at night. I'm in the military hospital now, laid up in my own private suite. I'm trying to heal, but without rest, it's proving impossible. I figure getting this out of my system might help. And I hope that it will, at least. But what do they say in Shawshank? Hope is a dangerous thing. Anyway, I was never great at beginnings, but I guess that I should start with the dive. We called it a submersible, but it was really a suit. This was no Jules Verne clunky, cumbersome, sink-like-a-rock diving suit. It was lightweight, pressure-resistant, and equipped with all the bells and whistles that lent it to a not unfamiliar nickname of being Iron Man. It's not to say that it was one of the skin-tight jobs that you see scuba divers wearing. It looks more like those suits guys defusing bombs in war zones wear. That aside, I was thankful there wasn't going to be a 60-pound oxygen tank misaligning my spine. The Iron Man was equipped with electrolysis filters which converted ocean water into breathable oxygen. The whole shebang was invisible on enemy radars, and could supposedly withstand a descent of this stature. Not that it had been tested. Basically, I'd be crawling down an ominous 8-mile ocean ladder in an experimental suit that had only been tried in Navy swimming pools. My colleagues seized on this predicament, jokingly called me Leica in the hours leading up to the dive. In case you're not familiar, Leica was the dog Soviets shot up into space in the 50s. The dog who died. So, as I stood on the hem of a small Navy vessel, also experimental, don't even ask, looking at the first few rungs of the ocean ladder which sat 20 feet off the starboard, and I wondered if this was my last taste of fresh air.
Hope your lunch wasn't too risky,
my colleague Matilda joked with a smirk.
Blow some gas into that thing and you might suffocate.
I smiled, but behind my smile was nerves. Raw, tingling nerves. And I think that she saw that.
Because her hand landed on my shoulder. You'll do fine, Jones.
This time I smiled for real, hoping that they were right. A nearby tech asked me if I was ready, and I nodded. And the bulky submersible's helmet descended me like a meteor. It really was Iron Man. The big window visor on the front of the helmet doubled as a screen, with oxygen and depth readings as well as direct comms to and from for people above the surface. There was a POV camera which fed my perspective as well, so they could monitor and record my descent, which had started an hour ago. I climbed down rung after rung, daylight fading as I descended into the murky depths. Fish darted past. A little twist of seaweed rolled by. It was all very pastoral and oddly existential. The ocean, I'm talking the vast, naked depths of it, is huge and never-ending. Look both ways and you see nothing but bluish-green water and swirling walls of sediment. A reminder of how incredibly small and inconsequential you are. It never bothered me until the climb. Now I'll never touch the ocean water again.
Are you good, Jones?
Matilda's voice in my ear. Yeah, I'm hunkin' fucking dory. My deltoids are screaming.
Should have put those hours in at the gym. Where the hell are those taxpayer dollars going if you don't look good on a recruitment poster?
I felt a smile creasing my face. The budget we got, they use models for that kind of thing.
So you're telling me that the strapping young stud that raises his voice and says, "Forged by the sea," isn't a real seaman? What the hell did I sign up for?
And I laughed. Sheesh, if I'd known I'd get this much one-on-one with you, I'd have put the Iron Man on a long time ago.
I'm here too.
Bradley's voice. Imagine a drone operator, a gangly, pimply kid raised on Call of Duty. That's Bradley. What did they say about 3 being a crowd? I asked.
They say that you're closing in on 500 meters.
Bradley said. Jesus. Already? I looked around. It had gotten darker. The ocean around me fading into a deep, dark blue that bled into a murky cloud. I double-checked my tether. Secure. It was a thick steel cable feeding through a pulley. A thing on rollers about the size of a brick, which ran along the right outer bar of the ladder. The tether was there, in case for some reason I lost my grip on the narrow, rusty rungs. Because if that happened, well, anyone seen Gravity? I shuddered at the thought of sinking down and down into nothing and no one to save me.
How's breathing?
Matilda asked,
And I smiled at the concern in her voice.
looking up at the little black on the top right of the visor, a camera pointing down at me. You could see my face. I could, in theory, see them too, had they decided to beam some footage onto my visor screen. There was no time for screwing around, and my visor was filled with numerical readings. On the left side was a little map detailing the ladder and my position, a red dot on it. I had barely made a dent. Doing just fine. The reason we weren't using a pod submersible, a single-man coffin connected to the above by a steel cable, was because I was on the lookout for any markings that might be etched into the ladder's metal skin, anything to denote its origin. So far, there had been nothing but barnacles, a crab exoskeleton, and a thick patina of algae. When can I ladder slide? Or can you throw a movie up on my screen? This is getting tedious. I was half joking, but not really. It was boring as hell. One rung after the other. To make the descent faster, I was going to ladder slide, hands cupped around the outer rails, feet on the outside of the brakes, but I couldn't do that until I hit a certain water pressure. Some geeky nonsense about how it would be easier to control the descent. The tether wouldn't be a problem there. The pulley was built to eat through rocks and had been satisfyingly crunching through barnacles the whole way down.
Once you hit about 1,000 meters.
You guys picked that number out of a hat?
The deeper you go, the greater the pressure bearing down on you. Makes it easier to control.
Shit, I must have skipped that day in school, I joked. Partly.
It was in the orientation.
Bradley said, not trying to hide his irritation. I think he may have been jealous of my rapport with Matilda. I skipped that too. Matilda chuckled, and I smiled again, even though I hadn't been joking.
Closing in on 750 meters, Leica,
Matilda said, calling me that goddamn dog. Better hope that I have a little more luck in my bones than rusky canines, I said, secretly hoping that I was right. I'd hate for you guys to fish me up and just find my naked skeleton.
You've got charm. That's got to be worth something,
Matilda said,
a smile in her voice.
Is it worth dinner next week? And Bradley groaned.
Ugh, God, you guys make me sick.
I chuckled. Aw, don't get blue, kiddo. You can carry rings at the wedding. And Matilda laughed.
Dinner first. Where?
I know this great place called the Base Cafeteria.
8 o'clock Friday?
It's a date, I said, continuing down into the abyss. I had worked up a killer sweat by the time that I reached the midnight zone, which sat just past 1,000 meters. Murky blackness, crushing in. It was suffocating, eerie. I clicked on my shoulder-mounted floodlights. 2 powerful beams of light blasting forward and... Oh, fuck! An ugly deep-sea fish with a mouth of fangs went whizzing by my head. I barked a pathetic yelp and I jerked back, nearly losing my grip on the ladder.
What's wrong? You okay?
Matilda asked, concerned. Fine, just Satan's spawn just caught me off guard.
Deep sea life?
The deepest,
Your go for slide.
Bradley said. I hesitated, suddenly not sure how I felt about plunging down at speeds unknown into the deep, inky blackness beneath me. Wish me luck, kids.
Luck.
I sucked a deep breath, moved my hands and feet off the rungs into the outer rails, and then slid down. It wasn't as exciting as I thought, but it was considerably faster and less draining than climbing down. My eyes watched the ladder blur by, still on the lookout for any markings. Once or twice I skidded to a stop, thinking that I had spotted something only to discover that it was nothing but deep-sea gunk caked to the metal. By the time that I did see any markings, I was too far gone for anyone to care. I stopped, not sure what I was looking at. A strange symbol etched directly in the middle of a rung in front of me. It looked like a weird cross between Arabic and Chinese. You guys seeing this? Hello? And finally, Matilda's voice.
Jones, the footage is freaking out. You okay?
I'm fine. Is this getting through?
Jones, you there?
I said I'm cool.
Buddy, you getting us?
Just fine. Can you hear me? And I felt panic squeezing at my lungs. Was the comm system fucking up? My screen began to flicker and glitched out. I was growing concerned.
Jones, you're not coming through.
I reached up to my visor and I gave it a smack. The readings on the screen momentarily realigned before spazzing out beyond control. Now my colleagues' voices were warbled. Words were lost, full of static.
Jones, can you hear? Are you?
Guys, I can't hear you! Fear in my voice. And a low hum built in my ears and then... silence. No voices. Nothing. My helmet basked in the glow of the flickering screen. I had lost contact with the world above. I froze, not sure what to do, split between the symbol on the rung and the disconnect from the safety net. Well, that's not completely true. Remember the tether connecting me to the rung ladder? There was a little button on the pulley box beneath the lucite case. Punch the button and the pulley box will zip me back up to the surface. Okay, fuck it. I was going back up. None of this was worth a damn if I didn't have my crew watching my back. I fumbled out an underwater camera stashed in the pouch of my chest, snapped a photo of the symbol, and began the 10-foot climb back up to the pulley box. And that's when I saw the mermaid. It flitted out of view, the silhouette of a man-sized fish. And I froze, not sure what I'd seen. It had only been there for an instant, etched in the beam of my floodlight. And then it was gone. Had I really seen anything? My breath was shallow, cold in my helmet, and I looked to my right. The water was black and murky. I looked to my left, and at first I didn't realize what I was seeing. A wall of bodies. Hundreds of mermaids surrounding me, their eyes glowing, pinpricks in the light, their needle-sharp teeth jagged and yellow. And they were awful. Deep-sea things, their tails yellow and scaly, their torsos pale and emaciated. Instead of arms, they had straw-thin appendages with hooked tips. And when my light hit them, they broke apart, darting off into the darkness in a cacophony of shrill chitters. Jesus Christ, I whispered, my voice hoarse, my throat like sandpaper. I looked up and I saw the pulley box, 5 rungs away. The button taunted me. The button that would save my life. Or maybe I was already past the point of saving. But I didn't wait. I climbed, fast as I could go, 1 rung after the next, 4 rungs, 3 rungs, 2, and then a shrill chittering split through the water. I looked to my left as a mermaid shot towards me, its hooked appendages clawed at my suit. I grunted and I threw up a defensive arm. A razor shredded through my flesh. Blood plummeted out of my ruined arm, and I cried out. My suit beeped, screaming warnings in my ear, the fabric instantly sucking together, automatically sealing the breach. As the mermaid flew off, and in came another. I threw the button box on the pulley, up to slam it, and then a freight train barreled through my midsection. The horrible, twisted face of the mermaid filled my visor. It had torn me off the ladder, and I floated entangled with this awful creature. Its gills undulated as it chittered in my face. A great ear-shedding sound that cut a bolt of fear through my stomach like an icy dagger. I grunted and jammed my fingers into its gills, hating the way that its flesh crackled as I twisted. Now the mermaid was struggling out of my grip, and I was winning. But then I wasn't. Something pounded into the ladder, jarring the pulley box, and something else hammered into my back. It was like being caught in a trash compactor, a dozen of those things crashing in on me. I screamed and I flailed and I fought for my life, and then suddenly, the mermaids disappeared, tails flickering as they flew off into the depths. And I was alone, completely alone, floating through the water. 15 feet from the ladder. I assessed the damage. My suit was mostly okay, except for my arm. Blood plumed through the fabric, funneling out and into the ocean. Each section of the Iron Man was isolated, so if one part got damaged, it would compromise the integrity of the whole suit. So water wasn't flooding my helmet. Yet. It very well could be soon, because there was a crack in my visor. I quickly reeled myself in, closing in on the ladder and the pulley box, which was my last and final hope. And then I saw it, and my heart sank and my stomach flopped. The pulley was nearly hanging off of the ladder's rail. It was close to breaking off. If that happened, I'd simply drift, fall, die in this oppressive darkness. I moved slowly, surely reeling myself in on the cable which rattled the box with each pull. I was lassoing the excess cable around my elbow as I went, my hands reaching out, fingertips skimming the rung ladder. And that's when I saw the shark. At first I thought that it may have been a mountain that slid off land some long ago year, left to float these murky depths eternally. But no, And there was a shark. The biggest living thing that I'd ever seen in my whole life. It must have been twice the size of a Boeing 747. A great pale monster outlining in my floodlights. Eyes as big as swimming pools. In its mouth. I couldn't bear to think what might be in its mouth. Oh, God. But that didn't seem to be enough. Oh my fucking God. It filled my horizon, moving closer. And I was paralyzed with fear. My heart jackhammered my ribcage like a manic construction worker. My hands reached out for the ladder, grabbing a rung, starting to pull myself up. And when the pulley box broke free of the outer rail, I looked up and I slipped, my hands slipping, my other hand shot out grasping the ladder, and then a rush of water blew me away. The shark was passing, and I was sinking, propelling downward by the force of the shark's movement, displacing impossible tons of liquid as it swam. I flailed, grunted, and screamed, the readings in my visor still flashing warnings. Then I was being sucked down into the depths. The shark continued on. And I drifted down, and the ladder slowly, painfully pulling away from me until it faded away from view. I tried calling to people above, screaming into my helmet, and at some point I stopped, realizing that they were long gone. And to them, so was I. I sunk for years. It felt that way at least, left to die a prisoner of the ocean. Stranded in the world of darkness, and after a while still sinking, I blacked out. I jolted awake at the bottom of the trench, in the ruins of a great city. Pillars of rock, spirals of stone, and husks of incredible mausoleums and colosseums rose around me, greenish in their eon-old patina. The city filled the trench as far as the eye could see, which was oddly far, seeing as a strange glowing orb filled my horizon. It was an impossible sun, a green ball of light pulsing and bubbling with heat, hovering off in the distance, bathing these alien depths in eternal light. And I stood up, a thin tendril of blood trailing up through the fabric from the gash on my forearm. I know it wasn't a monumental cut, but it was nasty and left me feeling woozy. I clenched it tight with a Velcro strap and I looked around. There was nothing but dead buildings stretching endlessly. Ugly deep-sea fish cut through the vacant windows and doorways. I wandered the city for a while, looking for signs of life or any vestiges of the ladder that had brought me here. And I found neither. I walked for a while. Hours, days maybe. I slept some, and I awoke and I walked more. Time must have worked differently down there. The atmosphere felt languid and disorienting. I'm not sure for how long I spent wandering. I found sprawling pictographs on the inside of a doomed building. They depicted an aquatic family that once ruled this underwater world. I saw 100-foot effigies of a multi-headed dragon-like beast with a multitude of clawed legs and a variety of gills spread across its form. And among them were other, small statues of the beast rolled into a ball. Sometime during my interminable sentence spent in the sunken kingdom, I realized the ball statues were depicting the beast's likeness as an infant, curled up in an egg. This gave new meaning to the glowing green orb on the horizon. Sometimes after staring at the green sun for hours, I thought that I could decipher the outline of the fetal beast wrapped in on itself, pulsing with life, waiting to be born. And eventually my mind slipped away from me. I heard voices, Matilda's and Bradley's. A barking dog, I thought. Might have been Leica. Sometimes I spoke to them. Other times I didn't. Just grateful for the company. And then, after a long, long while, I died.
I was brought back to life on a lobster boat. Two grizzled mariners with accents like molasses found me floating lifelessly and pulled me aboard. They scraped off my suit and resuscitated me on the fish gut-strewn deck of their little lobster tug. I thought that I was dead. My skin was cold, pale as a fish belly. Then I blinked to life. I took a rattling breath of fresh air, savoring the salty taste on my tongue. I looked up at the real world, and the two men around me. And all I could do was cry. I was brought to a hospital, then airlifted to the one that I'm in now. Matilda came to visit me immediately. She asked me what had happened, and I told her. I could see in her eyes that she didn't believe me. That I wouldn't believe me. I was gaunt, my hair long, my beard scraggly. I looked like I had survived a lifetime on a desert island, except for the fact that I was ghostly pale and not sunburned to a crackling brown. But it was good seeing her, until she looked me in the eyes and told me that I had been missing for 8 months. Military man after military man came to visit me, higher-ups in crisp uniforms weighed down by medals. I was interviewed until my head spun, but my story never changed. I told them to check my handheld camera. I learned that it was never recovered. Whether they didn't believe me or didn't want to was entirely clear. I had my scar to back up my story, and my time spent missing. I told them to send another man down, but they gave me some bureaucratic word vomit about how the risk assessment blah blah blah. Apparently that suit that I'd taken down wasn't cheap. Who would have thought? In the end, none of what I said seemed to matter, because they figured me for a deserter who took their top secret tech and defected to God knows where. Tralfamador, maybe. All I know is that at some point or another I was declared insane and ordered to a stint of convalescence, where I remain. I've tried to make sense of it all, but I can't. I wonder about the latter, and whether it was built as an invitation to the underwater place, or as an escape. Since I've gotten back, there has been a hollow ache in the center of my chest, a low hum in the pit of my soul. It's constant. It's dread. Dread of what I have seen. Dread of what might be growing in the green sun. Dread of what might come of the world if that thing ever rises to reclaim its kingdom. I've come to the end of my tale, and I still don't feel any better. Every time I close my eyes, I see that green sun. I see it pulsing and flickering with life. And now I know for certain it's an egg.